Hello friends, it has been a while since I have done a Q&A, so I asked for your questions and I received a whole bunch of them. I don't know what they are yet, I haven't looked at them. Let's dive into all of the different platforms that I posted on, and I will answer all the questions that I can before I lose my voice today. Let me interrupt myself real quick first. Members, make sure you check out Member Monday this week. I am editing a time lapse that I shot this weekend with a cool Lightroom plugin that I just started using. I will put a link in the description below to where you can find that, as well as if you want to learn more about joining as a member, I will include a link to that in the description as well. Okay, back to the Q&A. Number one is the YouTube community tab. What do we have here? The first question is by Ricky. Ricky says, was there a specific moment or series of events that made you really feel that photography was going to be your thing moving forward? And then there's a reply from Tyler saying this. Man, let's get started off with a bang, yeah? So I can't say that there was any one moment. I knew when I was a kid that I really liked taking pictures. I very much felt like an artist when I had a camera in my hands. I've said this before, I usually didn't have film in my camera. I just pretended to take photos, but I did. I always really enjoyed having a camera in my hand. Once I got older and I actually got into photography and learned everything about it, there really was no one moment. It was such a soft entrance into photography for me, where I was learning things, and then I kind of started to take jobs, photography jobs, but I also had a 9-to-5, so it really just, it was a slow process. There was no one bang, this is what I'm going to do moment, unless maybe you can count when I quit my final office job when I decided to do this full time. That was exciting and scary. And here I am now. All right, the next question is from Richard. Nikon Z50 versus Nikon D780. Your preference and why? Thank you. Well, I own the Z50 and I do not own the D780. So definitely the Z50 for me and for us, for Raymond and I. But the D780 is a great body. It just, I've kind of moved on from DSLRs. I think mirrorless bodies for me are a better way. A lot because of video, a lot because of form factor. I just think that's going to be the way going forward. DSLRs are fine. They're great. I still have a few of them back there. But Z50 would be my answer between those two. Keeping in mind, nobody yell at me. I know that the D780 has a lot of these different capabilities that the Z50 doesn't have. I have all kinds of other cameras that can do those things. So anyway, moving on to Andrew's question. 3 most useful accessories. Well, I assume you mean photography accessories, not like kitchen accessories. And I would say that number 1, I'm going to say, is actually my camera straps. Oddly enough, I have one here for another video I'm filming today. That is the Peak Design camera straps, because I can take the camera straps on and off really easily using the little dongles that hang from the camera. So really that's helpful because it's easier to put things in the bag and take them out of the bag. Like camera bags. It's easier for Raymond and I because we like different things. He likes to use a wrist strap a lot of the time. I do not like to use a wrist strap. Sometimes I want a thicker strap. Sometimes I want a thinner strap, depending on what lens I have on my camera. I just really like it. Oh, also for like time lapses, I like to take the strap off. For taking product shots when I'm reviewing things, I like to take the strap off. So that's number 1. Number 2, I'm gonna say, is my photo printer. I love my photo printer because it gives me full control of the process, and I love that. It also gives me prints, and I very rarely order out for prints because I just don't. A lot of us don't, because there's actually forethought to it. And while I would spend money on both, because I have to spend money on the ink and such for my printer, yeah, definitely my printer is one of them. And number 3, let's say, what else do I have around here? I don't know. I guess for my work, I could say my Atomos Ninja 5, it is very, 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 very helpful in my work as Snapcheck because I can record menus and stuff like that much more easily, and also what I see through the viewfinder, at least when I'm using an electronic viewfinder. So anyway, let's say those three things today. I have a lot of cool accessories that I really like, but we'll go with those three. All right, the next question is from Tian, and they say, which camera bags do you recommend for the Nikon Z50 double zoom kit? Oh gosh, that really is a preference question because you've got, the Z50 is so small, even with the zoom lens, the two zoom lenses, it's so small. You can use so many different things. It depends on what you like as well. I mean, Nikon has some great, just small bags. All the brands do. I have bags from everybody. My favorite is my Atlas pack, but oh, that should have been my other photography accessory. I really like my Atlas pack. But anyway, it holds a lot of stuff. That's probably overkill for you. So I would just look at Amazon Basics if you want something that's kind of budget friendly, but really any bag is gonna do you right because it's such a small and lightweight kit. Okay, let's move on to Instagram. Instagram says, number one. Uh-oh, hold on, I have to expand. Ugh, there's a lot. This is a good one. Mitcheller says, ranch or ketchup with fries? Mustard. Big Daddy Bills fan says, have you ever heard of Blue Frog filters for cameras? No, I have not. Blue Frog filters. I spelled it wrong. Blue Frog filters. Those are pool filters, Blue Frog filters, bluefrogfilters.com. Oh, neutral density filters. No, I haven't ever heard of them, but you know, cool. Neutral density filters are cool if that's what you want to do. Dinah says, how tall are you? I am 5'5". Nature Photo Studios says, do you think there's a place for destructive graduated neutral density filters now that exposure blending is so used so much these days? Oh, that kind of ties in with the whole Blue Frog filters thing, huh? I think that there is definitely still a place for graduated neutral density filters, and by that we're talking about lens filters that fit on the end of the lens, because I mean, you're changing what comes into your camera to begin with. So even though we have so much available these days in our like raw files, you're still able to change things before it even gets to the file. So you are kind of inherently, as long as you are experienced with your filter and how that works with your camera, it will inherently be better. You're inherently going to be able to do more with the file. If you know what you're doing with it, that is, if you have a lot of practice. Also, it's really handy for things like video. I actually have a variable neutral density filter that I use on my camera sometimes when I am filming video out in the field. Scruff Kingman says, what local camera store do you like? The last local camera store I was in was Tempe Camera in Tempe, Arizona, and it's fine. I honestly don't go to the local camera store often enough, and I keep saying I need to create a relationship with one of them in town. I actually have a film camera that I want to try to have fixed locally, but I just haven't yet. So you know what? Thanks for the reminder. I need to do that. Amp48T says, what is your favorite camera and lens to use for landscape and nature photography? I don't have one. I love everything. Yesterday I was out in the desert for a sunset and I was using this ultra wide lens on a full frame camera for a time lapse, but then I also had my Fuji X100V, which is a 35 millimeter, approximately a 35 millimeter effective field of view, and I was also taking pictures with that. I also like to use telephoto sometimes. So the answer is anything that I have with me, I like to use, and I like to mix it up. Mike Regus, I don't know, says, do you do AFMA, and if so, what method do you use? You mean like autofocus adjustments, micro adjustment. I think it's autofocus micro adjustments is what AFMA stands for. And I do not with my mirrorless cameras. I have not found a need to. With DSLRs, I did with my Nikon DSLRs, and it became much more easy as technology moved forward, because there is an automatic autofocus fine tune in Nikon DSLRs these days that made things very easy. So I don't know what brand you are using, but definitely check to see if they have an option like that, because it works real well. You do have to do it for, every lens that you have, but that's okay. It does good. Eddie F321 says, do you have any suggestions for something other than Lightroom, the software that keeps on taking? So you don't want a subscription. I like to use the free software that comes with the cameras. Nikon Capture NXD, Fuji X-RAW Studio, the others, I've used all of those. Those are free, but if you want something more, I do have Capture One, and I do enjoy using that, and they do have a perpetual license that you can purchase. And then I did just get my hands on a download code for DxO Photo Lab, and so far so good with that. I like that as well. So those are two to take a look at. Gibbs for Good says, which other photography related YouTube channels do you watch? Nothing regularly. I do particularly like Ted Forbes of The Art of Photography. He is awesome, and I like the way he explains things, and I also just like to listen to him talk. So I feel like Raymond and I have talked about this. He just has a very calming way about him. And the next question is from Mayanos Manali. Says, start up camera and kit lenses, please, and a software that is easy for beginners. I would say any camera and lens that you can get your hands on is what you should use. Any of the entry-level cameras out there today, along with their kit lenses, are going to be great. There are no poor choices on the market today. Cameras are so good. So that's my answer for that. But you got to get them in your hands and see which one you like holding, because if you don't like holding it to begin with, you're not going to use it, and then what's the point in having it? And then software that's easy for beginners, use whatever is free for the camera to start out with, or whatever you have on your computer, photos on the MacBook, or whatever else that you can find that is free out there. Because that way you'll get to know what it is you want, and if you even want or need anything more than that. Tom McKean Photo says, what do you like most about the Grand Canyon? Oh, all of it. Aside from the obvious, it's beautiful. It's a feeling that I get when I'm there. I feel at home there. I feel very much at peace and like myself when I'm there. And that sounds weird and woo-woo, but it's the truth. Canon Kid 1 says, road or mountain bike? Oh, both. I was on my bike trainer the other day, and it's a tri-bike, but I also love to tear it up on my mountain bike. JB Latour says, Tamron 35 to 150 for Nikon Z6, or wait for another zoom from Tamron or Sigma? Oh, well, that's a tough question, because I don't really know what you're looking for. I don't particularly like to wait for gear. I don't particularly suggest waiting for gear, because we don't know what's around the corner. So if you think you'll get a lot of use out of it, I say go for it. If you think that it's going to be a stretch for you to purchase it, that it's going to cause a monetary hardship, hold off and just see what happens around the corner. But yeah, I hope that answered the question. Nikon Art TR says, what social stigma does society need to get over? Oh my. Let's see. Me being a woman on the internet is super interesting. I would say the social stigma that society needs to get over, for one, is that a woman can't be techie enough. Yeah, we're gonna go with that, but I have about 1 million of them. Hennessy Robed says, filters, are they needed and why? Thanks so much. I think you mean lens filters, and we've already kind of talked about that. I don't think they're needed, but they can be really handy. If that's what you like to use, then go for it. And let's move on to Facebook. Facebook says, hold on, let me get there. Okay. Tommen says, I currently use an old D80 and want to upgrade on a budget. I rented the D7500 for a week and was not impressed, especially how laggy the live view was. Do you have a suggestion? I've been looking at Fuji and Sony as of late. And then Gunter says, upgrade to an old D90. You'd have a better camera and it wouldn't cost you very much. That's fine. I don't know if going to the D80 to the D90 is going to be necessarily what you're looking for, because I guess I don't know exactly what you're looking for, because when someone says upgrade, what do they mean by upgrade? What in particular is your camera lacking that you want? So if you don't like the D7500 and you don't like how laggy the live view was, have you looked at the Z50? I don't know what your budget is either. The Z50 is a great option if you're wanting to stick with Nikon. If you are looking at Fuji and Sony, yes, they're great. I've used a number of both of them. Most recently, I used the Sony Alpha 6100. It was wonderful. I've used a bunch of the Fuji bodies, and every single one that I've used has been great. I own the X100V, and yeah. So get them in your hands though, you're on the right track with that. You gotta try them out to see what exactly it is that you want. Andrew says, I have a Canon Rebel T6 and just bought my first macro tube. Any video help would be appreciated, thanks. I have never used macro tubes, I'll be honest with you. So I'm gonna open this up to everybody else out there. Is there a video out there that you found particularly helpful that you can help out Andrew with? Or any particular advice that you can give to him? Let him know down in the comments. DJ Geese says, if you are a Nikon Z mount and F mount shooter, is it worth it to buy Z lenses and F mount, or stick to the quality F mount lenses that you can use both with the FTZ adapter and the F mount bodies? You know, that depends on you, because for me, I found it worth it to use the Z lenses, mainly because of video for me, because I want to autofocus during video and I don't want to be able to hear it. So the Z lenses are mandatory for that on the Z bodies. As for photography, you can get slightly inconsistent results in terms of autofocus, and you'll only notice it when you're using an extremely shallow depth of field. So, you know, that's up to you. Do you think that is the silent autofocus and the spot on autofocus on the Z bodies necessary for you, or is it not entirely necessary for you? Keep in mind that autofocus issue that I just mentioned. You're not going to notice it most of the time unless you are always shooting with an extremely shallow depth of field and zooming in. Okay, Bruce says, what's the best Canon or Nikon full frame lens to photograph bears from a distance, please? From a distance is the key words there. When I ran into a bear, I had my Nikon 70-200 on the Nikon D500. And that was fine, but I did end up cropping most of my images. If I had had the Nikon 200-500 millimeter f5.6, I would have been a very happy camper. Joshua says, any tips for product photography? That's a good question, because I think that product photography is very precise, isn't it? You want things lit a certain way. You want things, reflections a certain way. You know, my very best tip about product photography is to think a little bit differently. See if, you know, maybe using a shallow depth of field instead of a deep depth of field with everything in focus, you know, makes a more interesting shot. Think about really zooming into a certain portion of whatever the item is. And you know what? This is my best tip. Keep it clean. Whatever it is that you are photographing, unless it's something that's supposed to be dirty, make it super duper clean. With my gear that I photograph and video for my reviews, I stick it into my light tent as soon as I pull it out of the box, because the moment I don't do that, there's dust, there's stuff, there's just stuff all over it, and it's nearly impossible to clean up. I've stuck my thumb on the back of the screen or something, and yeah, keep things clean. Nelson asks, is there even such a thing anymore as a bad camera? No, there's not. There never was a bad camera. They're all good cameras. All cameras are good cameras, just like all dogs are good dogs. Mike says, is there an equivalent FX lens to the 18-140 DX lens? I don't know if there's an exact equivalent, but if you're looking for something with kind of a decent amount of range for FX, I did just use the 24-120 f4 FX lens for Nikon, and it was great. I really enjoyed it. Jared says, what are some generic settings so I can get started doing rolling shots of cars? Should my shutter speed be under 100? By rolling shots of cars, do you mean cars that are moving? If so, yeah, you're gonna be probably over 1/100th of a second, but my best suggestion here would be to put your camera on shutter priority and auto ISO, and then just start creeping up your shutter speed. Take a picture of a moving car, if that's what you mean by rolling shots of cars. Take a shot of your car, and then if the car was blurry and that's not the look that you wanted, increase shutter speed a little bit, take another shot, and just keep going. That way you're not having to worry about the exposure of the shot because you have the camera doing the rest of the work for you. And then just creep up the shutter speed until you get what you want. Ian says, just purchased the P1000, getting some great bird and distance shots, etc. That's awesome. But portrait photos are a bit, any tips please? I watched your YouTube video on it and it was helpful for outdoor portraits, but I want to do some family snaps. So far, I'm not confident enough to try it. Well, that's the only way you're going to be able to do it, Ian. You're going to have to try it. It's true. I know it's scary, but you can delete all the shots if you don't like them. My advice here would be to, I don't know if you're using a studio, if you're just doing things inside, try to find a neutral backdrop for yourself. And by backdrop, I don't necessarily mean a studio backdrop. I just mean whatever that is behind your subject or subjects. Try to make it either abstract or just neutral, or try to get it as far away from your subjects as you can, even if that means that you're basically putting them in a doorway and there's the whole room behind them and you're out in the hallway and you're taking photos of them that way. Think around the idea of getting space in between your subject and the background, having however much abstract of a background you can, and yeah, those are my recommendations for you. And try it. You should just try it. If you're taking pictures outside and getting good bird and distance shots, you understand how to use the camera, you understand photography, you can do it inside. Use like your cup of tea or something instead of a person if you want to get some practice. And then, this is our last question. Blas says, you go in the wilderness a lot. Any inexplicable experience or rare phenomenon of the nature or rare animals spotted? Oh, this is a great question to end on. Inexplicable experience or rare phenomenon of nature or rare animals. I ran into the bear one time, but I wouldn't say that's necessarily a rare animal. Not really. How strange is that I'm out in the outdoors so often, and really there's nothing inexplicable or that rare other than, I went to Yellowknife, Canada and experienced the Aurora Borealis, and it was unreal. And we actually had many nights of unbelievable northern lights. So I guess that's kind of almost inexplicable or rare, although Dr. Jose Francisco explained the whole thing to us, so I guess it was kind of explicable. But but anyway, Blas, thank you for your question. And everybody, thank you for your questions. Thank you for sticking around to the end of this video. Give this video a like if you will, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I post videos all week, every week, several times a week, and make sure, members, if you haven't already watched Member Monday this week, check it out. There's a link in the description. And if you want to join or learn more about joining, there's a link in the description. Thanks everybody for watching.